Hello, this is Matthew. I wonder if you find this on a playlist or just an individual uh, video. This is on a playlist called An Alternate Understanding of Matthew 24. So, this is the third video I've done in this series, and we're going to cover an alternate understanding of Matthew 24, verse uh, 9 to 22. And so we're going to go through this verse by verse. And if you haven't tuned in, we did verses 1 to 8 in the video before this on the playlist. If perhaps you want to look at that, but just rehashing a little bit in verse 3, it says, "Now he sat on the Mount of Olives. The disciples came to him privately, saying, 'Tell us when these things shall be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age.'" Um, so that they asked two questions there, or really three questions. When will this temple be destroyed? What's the sign of your coming, and what's the sign of the end of the age? And so Jesus answered those three questions, but he didn't say, well, this is when the temple's going to be destroyed, and say a whole lot, and this is the sign of my second coming, and say a whole lot, and this is the sign of the end of the age. He didn't say that before that, but they pretty well understood when he told them in the day. But we don't understand today that he was talking about three separate things. And so Matthew 24 isn't simply about the future, it's about those three areas. And so Jesus in Matthew 24, verse 9 to 22, he talks a block of text um, about the time when the temple's going to be destroyed, which is AD 70. Um, then they will deliver you up. Uh, um, I think the translators put the word then in there sometimes because they just don't understand. So this word then shouldn't be there. They'll deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you'll be hated for by all nations for my name's sake. And that happened to the early church. And many will be offended and betray one another and hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And um, in uh, in Jonathan Weldon's book Raptureless, he talks about those false prophets. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved, and that's true of people today. Whoever endures to the end shall be saved. But this was being said to the disciples of that day about the temple being destroyed. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the whole world as a witness, and to all nations, and then the end will come. People like James went to India, and the gospel was preached to all nations in those days. The gospel that took off from Jerusalem took off to the whole world. So we've had a fulfillment of that scripture already. The world's a bigger place now. There's a lot more people in the world these days, and but that's already been fulfilled once. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads this, let him understand. Um, so, foreign kings, when they invaded a city of a different culture, they used to go into the holy place and desecrate the holy place. So before they destroyed the temple, they went and sat on the thrones in the temple and desecrated the temple. So the abomination of desolation isn't the Antichrist sitting in some future temple. The abomination of desolation was someone in that invading army going into the temple and desecrating it. And so that already happened. So they saw that. The Christians in Jerusalem saw that. Then those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Then him who is on the housetop, do not go back to take anything out of his house. And him as in the field, do not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath. So when that person sat, when it got invaded by the army, and when that person sat in the temple, you're meant to flee, you're meant to take off right away. And pray that your flight may be not in winter or on a Sabbath, for then there'll be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor shall ever be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Um, so in that siege, they put a siege on the city of Jerusalem and starved people, and people were eating babies and stuff, and it was very terrible. And the suffering, Jesus said, would uh, be suffering that the world has never seen and won't see since. So they suffered tremendous things, but the good news of those times, and you can read it in history books, the good news of those times is all the Christians in Jerusalem fled, and they got out of the city before the siege was built around the city. Before people were trapped in the city, they got out of the city, and only the Jews starved to death and were eating their babies. All the Christian Jews, all the people who'd become Christians, escaped and took off to other places. So Jonathan Walden teaches pre-tourism, which teaches that Matthew 24 has already been fulfilled and Revelation has already been fulfilled. And he preaches that there was an Antichrist and the mark of the beast and all sorts of stuff. So I don't suggest you go and read his book, but for this sake, for this passage from 9 to 22, you could read his book and get a lot of research on this particular part of the passage, because all of that was fulfilled in AD 70. So the gospel doesn't have to reach every nation. Now, here's the thing about scripture is Jeremiah 29:11, for I have plans for you, thoughts to prosper you and do you hope and not for evil, whatever Jeremiah 29:11 says. We all claim that scripture for our own life, and the scriptures in the Bible bring us comfort. Every scripture in Isaiah can be profitable for today, and scriptures in Psalms and Proverbs can be profitable for us today, and they can have multiple fulfillments. So it's possible for scripture to have multiple fulfillments, um, uh, but the tribulation in that time, such as hasn't been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor shall ever be, it can't be as bad as that again, because Jesus said it can't be. And so they really suffered in that siege. So this is the second video. I'm going to put the third video in context in the playlist, so you'll see the third video at the right time. But this is just an alternate view, maybe a view you've never heard before. And I'd appreciate your likes and comments. And if you think this will help someone, please share it.